Hello everybody, I'm Thrice Will. Tonight I have a very special guest with me. I have my mom.
Hello everybody, I'm Mom.
And tonight we're going to be having a generation gap discussion on two very special topics that my mother picked out. One is modern feminism, and the other is equal opportunity versus equal outcome. So we're going to get to feminism first. So before we get into this, I'm going to have my mom give a little bit of background on her. That way we can give you a little scope of where she's coming from, especially from her generation. So just take it away.
Okay, I was born in 1965. I know I'm old. Female, obviously I'm a mom.
Yeah, that'd be awkward otherwise.
Yeah, that would be. I grew up in a middle class town, the youngest of four. Among my family, I was never told that I couldn't be anything that I didn't want to be. But the outside world told me differently. As a child, I was forced to wear, in a public school, forced to wear dresses to school, even in the winter, and I walked. If you wore pants, you had to take them off as soon as you got to school. That lasted until I was about 4th grade, before we were allowed to wear slacks. Not jeans, slacks.
So as long as it was dressed formal? Or...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So basically you grew up in a time frame when women didn't have much rights as far as dress, where to go, or where they could go to.
No. I remember my mother worked at the school.
Right.
Which a lot of mothers that I knew in my area neighborhood growing up did, because they were off when the kids were off, blah, blah, blah. My mother hurried home so that dinner was ready at 5:30 sharp, whether my father worked over or not.
Okay.
5:30 sharp.
But we're talking at the begin of what some would call the sexual revolution, where it was still that 1950s mentality of...
But we're talking, by then, it's the early 70s.
Right.
I had a friend that her mother was a nurse, and she worked giving shots to immigrants, Hispanic at our area.
Right.
And I remember other mothers kind of talking about her because she had a full-time job that kind of took her away from her kids. And others mothers were like, you're supposed to do a job part-time.
And be a mom.
And be a mom, and be in PTA, and be in Women's Auxiliary, and be involved in the church, and that was your job.
Or the
period.
veterans, or whatever.
Yeah. Period, the end, that was your job.
So, with that kind of background, you can all see why I'm kind of screwed up now, but I kid. I was actually raised by my mother and my aunts, who are all very, very wonderful, strong-willed women who craft me into the horrible, fucked up person I am today.
Thank you.
However, but let's get into this. I've read you different articles over the last few months, especially with New Age feminism.
Yes.
You know my stance on it as a men's rights advocate, because there are a lot of issues men face that feminism does not take into consideration.
Correct.
It's not equality for the sexes, it's equality for women.
Right.
And you picked this topic for, I'm guessing, several reasons, but what reason did you have for picking this topic?
Because I see a lot of the feminists today screaming equal rights, screaming this, screaming that. They didn't live in a time period that I did, my mother did, my grandmother did, and they don't seem to recognize what we went through to get where we are.
Okay.
And it's not about putting the man down. It's like fighting to be allowed in the world. If I can cope with everything you can cope with, then I should be allowed into your world and not be put down.
Right.
And we fought. And we fought hard. And we paid dearly. And they don't seem to understand that or recognize that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially with millennials today, with needing safe spaces, with the whole everybody gets a participation trophy.
Yeah. That's bullshit.
It is. I mean, every time I lost when I was in high school sports or when I was in even elementary grade sports, you and the rest of the family made sure to tell me that you learn more from losing than you do winning.
Yeah.
Even if it is that you just lost.
Yeah.
So, this need for acceptance, this need for fighting a cause, this need to be right when they've never been challenged.
Exactly.
Is, I think, the crux of the problem here.
Yeah. And that's what really burns my butt. They didn't work in the time periods I did.
Yeah, because you worked in the factory industry from early 90s, late 80s. Till what, 2010 or so? 2012?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
In a man's field.
Yeah, engineering and...
Yes, and I succeeded at it.
Yes.
Why? Because I worked hard. I'm not saying it wasn't easy. I'm not saying I didn't have my trials.
Right.
But I worked hard, and I earned
every
what I
single
got.
way, yeah.
And I got the respect because of that.
Right.
Not because I cried, "Oh, I'm just a girl."
Right. Or you should let me into this job just because a vagina. You know, I mean,
no.
It was you.
It's because I had the skill, I had the knowledge, I had the courage, and I had the will.
Exactly.
Same as a man does.
Yes. You didn't need any special accommodations or anything like that. Well, not until you got ill, but...
Right, yeah. That's a different story.
Yeah. However, you fought on the front line, as some would say, as a second or third wave feminist.
Yes.
Because you were the ideal. You were a mom.
Yes.
You were a housewife.
Yes.
And you were a supervisor for a
major
company, a major supplier for a major car manufacturing company.
Yes.
Who, if they want to sponsor me, I'd be more than happy to shill their vehicles because they are good vehicles. However, until I get that sponsorship, I'm not shilling shit. But still, I mean, you climb the mountaintop as far as feminism of that time period goes. The only thing you didn't accomplish was cure cancer or become a CEO. I mean, in all honesty.
And I wasn't Japanese. So.
Well, yeah. If you were Japanese, whew,
well, I probably wouldn't even got that far. But hey, you know.
You could have been head sweeper. But, Another story. But still, it's just... My argument went from being told that as a male, I am going to do this because I am male. That is kind of the same thing that feminism fights, as far as Well, let me give us some clarification.
Well, they say you're
Right.
gonna this white privilege thing.
This white privilege, male privilege.
Yeah.
That as a white male, I will be a rapist. I will be more likely to be racist. Whatever.
But you were also supposed to be born like, I don't know, a CEO or vice president
or God.
Yeah, something, and I didn't see that.
Yeah, there was no divine light
Yeah.
when I was born. So,
No.
however, the ideology that this puts out that men are bad, that men do this, men do that. I mean, we've all heard the different stories.
Yeah.
That these feminists keep pushing are like 40 years old. I mean, a good example of this is the Duluth model.
Right.
That, okay, yeah, it may have worked somewhat in the 80s.
Yeah. 1981
was when it was
based, yeah.
But
shit's changed since then.
Yeah, we're in an age that women have more rights today and more abilities as a protected class than a single white male does.
Even though in every race except two, and they're small and minor.
Yes.
Not saying that they're not worth mentioning.
Right.
And that's Native Indian and
Pacific Islander.
Yes. Women outnumber men by millions. So why we're still considered a minority
when you're the majority.
Yeah. I understand because in certain fields we are still the minority.
Right.
And I get that. However, if you look at the overall population and we outnumber men as a whole.
And not to mention the graduation rate.
Yeah.
By hundreds of thousands.
If we could get our poop together.
Yeah.
We'd be ruling the world.
Yes. But feminism would be then obsolete, in my opinion.
Well, yeah.
And they need to have something to rally against, so they force this ideology that women are victims, that the big old mean men are keeping them down still, when it's their own heads and their own asses that's keeping them from achieving whatever they want.
I mean, I've fought against a number of men throughout my career. I've even had guys like belly bump me.
Chest bump, yeah.
Yeah. Like they're going to kick my butt and that's going to change my mind.
Right.
However, they're few.
Yes.
We're finding more and more men as the generations come that are raised by strong women that have taught them that how to treat a lady, number one. Number two, that you have as much right as any woman does.
Yes.
You've not been granted a certain privilege just because you're black, white, male, female, Hispanic, Korean, purple, blue, whatever.
Exactly. The beep you guys just heard was my phone. I forgot I had it on. However, I do agree. Now, me and you have disagreed on a lot of topics. We've agreed on a lot of topics over the years. However, this one in particular, we started off as we disagreed. I mean, because the person that brought me into this was Submarine Nick. And Submarine Nick brought me into the world of MRAs and started showing me different reports and different articles and different studies. And you two fought tooth and nail for about 4 or 5 months over feminism and women's rights versus men's rights and everything.
Yes.
But in all fairness, Submarine Nick does not go into anything half-assed.
No.
He's diligent in researching.
All right.
But he was able to change your mind.
Yes.
Because he started bringing bringing to the table what modern feminism is doing now.
Right.
And they've gone from being, I would never say they were truly heroes, because the ones who were just screaming feminism and not doing anything to change anything aren't helping anybody.
No.
But the women,
They're actually
they're kind of they distract.
yeah, they're a bad spot on females as a whole, I believe. That's my personal opinion.
Fair enough. But this, we've kind of covered feminism pretty well right now. So let's go ahead and segue into equal opportunity versus equal outcome. Now, what made you want to pick this? This one I'm kind of curious about.
I think you kind of picked it.
Well, you were saying...
Well, I'm saying that they want to talk about equal opportunity, but to me it's almost sometimes reasonable accommodation.
Right.
And I say that not only as an old school feminist, but also as now a handicapped woman.
Right. For those who don't know, reasonable accommodation is making accommodations that are reasonable for somebody who has a handicap, a disability, or some type of thing holding them back. A lot of women, a lot of feminism, I should say, nowadays say that women should be granted certain things because vagina. Now, last time I checked, your sex was not a handicap.
Exactly.
Except for nowadays, unless you're a male, it is becoming a handicap because, if, for example, the equal opportunity employment is a great example of this. As a white male, I will be less likely to get a job in any field if somebody of color, if somebody of a different ethnicity, if somebody of a different gender, or sexual preference even, applies for the same job.
Okay, and I'll agree to that to a sense, but the percentage for an employment to hold equal opportunity is small compared to the total outcome, right?
Right. Okay.
If I hire 100 males, I might only need to hire 3% that is either female, Hispanic.
And I don't have the numbers on that.
Yeah.
I would need to look that up. But okay, let's
But it's still not fair.
It's not fair, right? Let's
small.
Let's get away from the job market and go into something that's a little bit broader and has a wider scope on this. Aid, government aid,
yes,
is not equal opportunity. It is that very much equal outcome because if you are a minority, if you are female, or if you are some other type of gender or protected class, you are likely to get more aid with less work than a white male to get the same amount.
And see, I don't know. I do know that if you're a single male and you're not working and getting aid is difficult. I do know as a handicapped female who worked her ass off and made great money.
Right.
It took me a long damn time to get any aid, and my aid is based on what I made.
Right.
Do I make more on my disability than others? Well, hell yeah, I do, because
you worked your ass off, and it's your money.
I worked 20-some years
at a good rate. But let me throw out this example because me and the girlfriend were talking about this.
Yes.
She's thinking about going back to school.
Mm-hmm.
With childcare, food stamps, and everything else that she's receiving right now, her trying to work and go back to school, they have told her that she doesn't need to. That she can go back to school and they'll pay her to go back to school.
Yes.
They won't do that for men.
No. That's true.
They won't do that for white men.
That's true.
They will do that for everybody but.
Now, if men have children, that can change, but that's...
They will still have to work and go to school.
Not necessarily, but yes, in most cases you are correct.
Yes.
And it's still based on old numbers.
Right.
Where too many women were left stranded.
Right.
Regardless of the race.
Yes.
With children to raise.
Yes.
No education. No way of improving life.
Right.
And nothing's changed since that time.
Well, allegedly.
Yes.
I understand that. I firmly believe that our entire government situation needs to be overhauled anyway because it's outdated.
Yes.
But you can... It just boggles my mind when you have people who are like, okay, well, the rich have all this money and anybody who makes over this set income is the enemy. It's like, that's not the case. These people, in a lot of cases, worked hard for their money.
Yes.
Now, there's only been a few times in U.S. history that this has come up. However, we have seen a shrinkage of the middle class.
Yes.
A growth of the poverty.
Yes.
The rich aren't getting richer. There wasn't like half of the middle class who were like, oh, we hit the lottery, we're going to go into the high ends now. No, people were falling off the middle class.
Yeah.
As poverty is increasing.
Right.
So when people say we need to eat the rich, per se, who are they talking about? Is my point. My problem. Are we talking the middle class, or are we talking the 0.5% of the population?
And my thing is, and I understand, because I worked hard.
Yeah.
To be middle class.
Right.
But we lived comfortably.
Yes.
And then people would, you don't know what it's like to be poor. Well, yeah, I do. I know what it's like to feed a family 3 on $50 a week. Lived it, did it, worked my ass off not to have to do it anymore.
Yeah, in a Cracker Jack box house.
Yeah.
In the middle of suburb. Well, I wouldn't even say suburbia. It was it was a white ghetto and
a dying city.
In a dying city, yeah.
Because factories closed, blah blah blah. But I do feel that sometimes the rich, and I'm saying family wealth,
right,
are excluded because of their money.
Right.
They can afford shelters and donations and this that gives them cut tax breaks.
Right.
That the middle class or the poor could never dream
of even comparing
with.
Right.
They donate more money for tax breaks than the middle class and the poor make in a year.
Yes. And that's brings us, in with this equal opportunity versus equal outcome, I see the argument for equal outcome. However, people don't realize what's involved with equal outcome. What happens when you're no longer on the bottom end and you're on that top end? Should I get half of what you make because I'm poor? No. I didn't work for it. You did. If I'm middle class, and if anybody makes over, let's say $80,000 a year, and I'm working a job where I'm making $81,000 a year, and I'm supposed to be taxed heavier so it can go to poor subsidies to raise to lower the poverty level. That's not fair for me because I'm working my ass off to provide.
Right.
Now, you get old money.
Yeah, you get the extremely rich.
You get the extremely rich who could not spend it all in one lifetime or even two. Then yeah, I think there should be a flat tax rate for everybody, because then it would just be one rate, and whatever your income level is, one rate for that income level, and then there's no problems, or there's less problems.
Yeah,
but
there's less, but you still got the benefit of tax breaks,
right,
and that you can claim.
That's a different argument for a different day, because that's getting into the whole lobbyist and carbon tax
and I think that's the major problem on that. I don't begrudge people that worked hard.
Yes.
For their money.
When you hear these people about what are they called, blue collar millionaires or whatever, where they found a niche, they found something that people needed,
and they're good at,
and they took it and ran with it and made shitloads of money on it. You know what? My hat's off to you. That's the American dream. But when you are a social or a general studies social major in college, you're living in your mom and dad's basement, and they pay for everything, but you're still screaming you want that everybody should make the same amount of money no matter what. Yeah, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't believe in that.
And I mean, I've been a waitress.
Yeah, you've waited tables.
They're paid dirt poor.
They are.
However, you live on your tips, which depends on
how good
of a waitress you are.
Yeah.
So I don't think that serving food should measure up to what I did later in life, where I'm reading blueprints
and making multi-million-dollar decisions.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're dealing with multi-million-dollar contracts. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah, I mean, there's a far cry from me delivering pizzas to protecting a multi-million-dollar grossing facility.
Yeah.
Now, yes, being security isn't glamorous and it's relatively easy. However, there's still a lot of trainings and there's still a lot of things I have to go through and I have to be aware of. But that's all aside. I think we've covered equal opportunity and equal versus equal outcome. I think we've given some pretty good arguments. Same with feminism. This video is running a little long. If you stayed here, thank you for sticking in. That's going to probably do it for us tonight. But if you like what you heard, please subscribe, like, share. As always, I just want you guys to know that your opinion matters, and if you want to comment, please do. Let's start a discussion. Let's have just civil discussions, and we can probably solve a lot of these problems. As always, I'm Thrice Will with my loving mother.
Hi, Mom.
And as always, this has just been my humble perspective.